home to see my mother the same weekend she entered hospice. Just 2 months earlier, we were chasing my toddler around Butler's Orchard Farm, but there she was, confined to a hospital bed in the middle of her living room, surrounded by bottles of morphine and Ativan, her beautiful face now gaunt and hollow. She was losing her battle with clear cell endometrial cancer. That weekend was an overwhelming blur of visits from hospice workers and discussions of last wishes. But in the midst of it all, she turned to me one day and she said, "Caitlin, I want you to know that I'm not afraid to die, because I know there's something beyond this world. My biggest regret is leaving you. But when I get to the other side, I'm going to find you and send you a message." My mother and I were incredibly close. I'm an only child, and for a lot of my childhood, my mother was a single parent, so we spent a lot of quality time together. She was my biggest source of support and my greatest champion. We were also very different. My mother was detail-oriented and organized. I'm a little absent-minded and haphazard. She was driven by gut intuition. I am a compulsive overthinker, and she was a true believer in all things spiritual. Energy work, meditation, astrology. She saw the meaning and connectedness in all things, but over the years, I've tended to be the skeptical atheist. But skeptic or not, I would have done anything to know I would hear from my mother one more time. So I told her, "Mom, you know I don't believe in that sort of thing, but I'll be keeping my mind open and I'll be looking out for any sign of you." But in the days and weeks after her passing, I didn't feel a sense of her presence, you know? I kept my mind open for signs and coincidences, but nothing was coming. And then I remembered something she told me years ago when I was younger and going through a kind of challenging time in my life. She said that whenever she felt like she needed divine inspiration, she would set an intention and ask the universe for a song with a message for her. And then she'd pay close attention while she was flipping through the radio, or maybe what was playing on in the background while she was getting her hair done. And when she heard the song that was meant for her, she would sort of intuitively know. And at the time, being a sassy teenager, I remember thinking, "Gee, Mom, that sounds like confirmation bias." But grief inspires a certain amount of magical thinking. So I decided that I was going to try a version of this, because music had been a big part of my childhood. Both of my parents were musical. They actually met on some sort of high school music band competition. And I have these early memories of my father playing the piano while my mother sang along to "Someday in the Park with George," Carole King, or Carly Simon. My mother had dreamed of being a professional singer when she was younger. And she had this amazing, beautiful, clear singing voice. And she was always singing, no matter what she was doing. Walking down the street, cleaning, cooking, baking a pie, always humming some sort of tune. And there were several songs that had personal significance to my mother and I. Songs that she sang to me time and time again as lullabies, or when I was in need of comfort, like "Nothing's gonna harm you, not while I'm around," from Sweeney Todd. Or "Why do birds suddenly appear every time Caitlin's near," by the Carpenters. And so I downloaded these songs onto my phone with a bunch of other songs that I knew she loved, like "These Are Days" by 10,000 Maniacs, "Both Sides Now" by Joni Mitchell, "Fire and Rain" by James Taylor. And I added them to my overall music library of like thousands and thousands of songs. And every day I got in my car, I plugged in my music, and I set an intention. If my mother was somewhere out there, I was gonna press shuffle, and I wanted the first song to be a message from her. I did this for months. And not only was I not getting any of the songs I downloaded, I was getting weird songs. Songs that definitely had no significance, like "Hey Ya" by Outkast, or "Psycho Killer" by the Talking Heads. But the more I did this, the more invested in the outcome I became. And the more I started to feel really foolish, and then just really epically sad. You know, confession time, I'm a reluctant skeptic. I would would love to believe there's something more than all of this. And I really held out hope that something extraordinary would happen. If there was one person who could have proved me wrong about the nature of all existence, it would have been my mother. And more than anything, it just felt like my life was falling apart around me. You know, work stress, navigating being a first-time mother of a rambunctious toddler, having to sell a beloved first home and move, and for the first time ever, I was having to do it without the benefit of my mother's counsel. If she was somewhere out there, it was inconceivable to me that she could be silent at a time like this. Maybe she was just really gone. So I stopped doing the intention setting thing. And I mostly felt like I was drifting in this feeling like the best days of my life were behind me. But then one day, I was sitting home alone at night, like doom scrolling on Reddit, and I got this alert on my phone. It said, "You have a new memory." And if you have an iPhone, your phone probably does this thing too, where it creates these automated video montages. It calls memories, and they're usually around a theme, like Good Eats 2015, and it's every photo you took that year of your brunches. Or Furry Friends, and it's 1 bazillion photos of your cat. I don't normally get an alert when my phone creates a new memory, but I did for this one, so I clicked on it. And it was called Mom Over the Years. And it was just photos of my mother. And at first I didn't want to watch it, but something told me I should. And you know that the Apple algorithm always chooses some random song for these montages, but I never hear the song because my phone is always on silent. But for whatever reason, this day my ringer was on and there was this song. And it wasn't a song I'd ever heard before. And it was by the Foo Fighters. So not a band I'd ever been a particularly big fan of. But when I heard the lyrics, they really struck me. It went like this. I'm a one-way motorway. I'm a road that drives away and follows you back home. I'm a street light shining. I'm a wild light, blind and bright, burning off and on. It's times like these you learn to live again. It's times like these you give and give again. It's times like these you learn to love again. It's times like these, time and time again. And I don't know that I'm saying that that song was sent to me by my mother from the great beyond, because I'm still a bit of a skeptic. All I know is that listening to that song and watching that montage, I was filled with this overwhelming gut intuition that if my mother could have sent me a message right then, she would have wanted me to learn to live again. Thank you.